So we're in Ruth chapter 3. If you haven't turned there yet, turn there now, Ruth chapter 3. This is our third week in the book of Ruth. And the true story of Ruth is one that whispers the name of Jesus. It does point us to Christ. It does continue the overall story, the path to a Redeemer, to a Messiah. It is about God preparing the way for his Son. Ruth is also about the choices that we make every day, and how that God's at work in the rubble of those choices, in the ruin of those choices. God is always at work. I've been encouraging you to read Ruth. I hope you'll do that. One of the striking things, in my opinion, about Ruth is it's not a book as compelling as we talk about what a great story it is. It really is compelling storytelling. But it isn't a book about a dashing prince or a beautiful princess. It isn't a book about a rising empire or a crumbling empire. There's no great epic battle. There's no gruesome death. I mean, just in the book before in Judges, one of the judges stabs this wicked king with a knife, and the king is, we're told in the book, is so fat that when the guy stabs him with the knife that he's made, he loses the knife, like it's gone inside the king, right? That's how crazy Judges is. There's nothing like that in Ruth. It's very ordinary. And yet it's incredible, right? There's no epic battle, no gruesome death, but it's about everyday people like you and me. Everyday ordinary people who after we die will be forgotten pretty quickly to history. Our own great-grandchildren likely won't remember our first names. It's about ordinary people that face everyday problems. Problems that won't necessarily go viral or get the attention of the world. It's about loss and grief and feeling forgotten, feeling unseen and unheard by the one true God. It's about relationships with in-laws and moving to find work and moving to find hope. And in the middle of all that, finding love. It is a tiny book, but God has devoted this tiny book to the canon of Scripture, and he's devoted it to the everyday problems that you and I face. And yet, the main character of the book isn't Ruth. It isn't Naomi. It isn't Boaz. The main character is God himself. And the author of this book uses humor and uses innuendo over and over to show us this. Because see, if you and I, if we'll see the handiwork of God in their broken lives, then maybe, just maybe, we'll see the handiwork of God in our broken lives. And that's why the story is so compelling. God rules over the miraculous. If we learned anything in Exodus, we saw over and over again how he is the God of miracles, the God of the miraculous. What he did to deliver Israel from that great superpower Egypt, God is the God of the miraculous. But Ruth shows us and reminds us that he's also God over the mundane. Chapter 2, we talked at length about all the times it's referred to that it just so happened, as luck would have it. And the author is doing that on purpose to show us that there is no luck, that nothing just happens. It is all the plan and the sovereign will of God. God is God over the miraculous, but he's also God over the mundane and the ordinary. And Ruth and Boaz and Naomi are quite very ordinary people, but their God is not. I think one of the things that unites us here today in this church is that you and I, we are very ordinary people, but our God is not. I'm going to read chapter 3 here in just a moment, but I also want to say that the book of Ruth is a defense of David's right to the throne. It's being established in Scripture. It is a story of God at work in the worst of times. It's also a story about God preserving his promise to bring a Savior, a promise that he made all the way in chapter 3 of Genesis, that someone would come, someone would rise up from the seed of the woman who would crush the head of the serpent. And so Ruth is about that. Ruth highlights the continuation of the messianic line. But it is a love story too. And it's a beautiful love story at that. I think that if we were honest, we would say that as much as our culture is consumed with love and talks about love and sings about love and puts out shows nonstop about love, our culture is obsessed but clueless. I don't think you have to look any further than to the hit show on Netflix, Love is Blind. If you watch a little bit, if you feel bad about your life, just watch that show because you're like, I'm not as bad as those people, right? Like, you shouldn't really do that, like, with that attitude. But you know what I'm saying? Okay, those poor saps on that show, okay, dating without ever seeing each other, and they're so desperate for love or to find the love because of all their past relationships that didn't work out. They're dating without seeing each other. They're dating between this wall, and they are just begging for any common ground. You have two arms? Oh my goodness, I have two arms. We have so much in common. I think I'm falling in love with you. This is kind of how it goes. The music industry and Hollywood talks about love often enough. Romance novels fill shelves of bookstores. Amish romance novels fill the shelves of Christian bookstores. And the whole of it is largely kind of worthless and filled with lies and terrible examples. A great article I read a while back kind of used the case in point of the story of The Notebook, which is written by Nicholas Sparks. And don't get me wrong, Ginger and I watched that movie, okay? So I'm not just coming at everybody like that, but it's good for us to take a step out of the culture and look at it for a second and compare it to what the Bible values, okay? Wildly famous book by Sparks, adapted into a movie that was also quite successful. It is the quintessential romance, ending with two lovers dying in a nursing home bed, holding hands. After we watched that movie, we went to bed that night. No joke, Ginger and I, we were getting ready to fall asleep. I was holding her hand, and I whispered, I'm like, just think if we die right now, we'll die just like they do in The Notebook. And she didn't think that was very funny. But who doesn't want that, right? Who doesn't want that? To die in old age, nursing home bed. But in the movie, Noah is played by Ryan Gosling, and he is a troubled soul. But he sees his future wife, Allie, and he is consumed with her. But her parents don't trust him. He has her out past curfew with the intention to sleep with her. He's also a drunk. Allie ultimately leaves town only to return sometime later, much, much later. And when she returns, Noah is now in the middle of a sexual relationship with a war widow. But he breaks that off to pursue a sexual relationship with Allie. And this is all supposed to be okay because he's a good guy. He pursues her. He's consumed with her. He's consumed with Allie. And listen to me, that guy never becomes the one holding your hand in the nursing home. Never, right? He left a long time ago to pursue another passion that he couldn't live without, to pursue another person he couldn't live without. But we're supposed to overlook all of the drunkenness and the immorality because he's consumed. But you singles, you listen to me. You don't date, you don't want a guy or a girl who is consumed with you and pursues you above everything else. You want a guy or a girl who is consumed with Christ, who pursues Christ above everything else. You want a lover who pursues Christ first and foremost, because that person who pursues Christ first will always have your best in mind. Always have your heart and interest at mind. A lover who pursues you above everything else will always have their best in mind and about keeping you happy, because it's for them, it's for their good. It pursues their pursuit. Okay? Maybe, give you case in point, maybe something really needs to be said to you about a blind spot in your life. But that person who's just consumed with you won't say it because they don't want you to get mad. When you get mad, it makes them feel bad. And your best interests are not at heart for them. Theirs are. It's all about them. All of that to say, we talk about the brokenness of our culture and our idea of what love and consuming passion looks like. The book of Ruth is incredibly, strikingly relevant. It provides the blueprint for a Christ-honoring relationship. We're going to talk about that today. But it's a relationship to be emulated, but it also points us to the greater Redeemer. There is a Redeemer, and that great Redeemer is Jesus Christ. So let's see it today on these pages. Look at chapter 3, verse 1. Then Naomi, her mother-in-law, said to her, "My daughter, should I not seek rest for you, that it may be well with you? Is not Boaz our relative, with whose young women you were? See, he is winnowing barley tonight at the threshing floor. Wash, therefore, anoint yourself, put on your cloak, and go down to the threshing floor. But do not make yourself known to the man until he has finished eating and drinking. But when he lies down, observe the place where he lies. Then go and uncover his feet and lie down, and he will tell you what to do." And she replied, "All that you say I will do." Verse 6, so she went down to the threshing floor and did just as her mother-in-law had commanded her. Verse 7, and when Boaz had eaten and drunk, and his heart was merry, he went to lie down at the end of the heap of grain. Then she came softly, uncovered his feet, and lay down. At midnight, the man was startled and turned over, and behold, a woman lay at his feet. He said, "Who are you?" She answered, I'm Ruth, your servant. Spread your wings over your servant, for you are a redeemer. And he said, may you be blessed by the Lord, my daughter. You have made this last kindness greater than the first, and that you have not gone after young men, whether poor or rich. And now, my daughter, do not fear. I will do for you all that you ask. For all my fellow townsmen know that you are a worthy woman. And now it is true that I am a redeemer. Yet there is a redeemer nearer than I. Remain tonight, and in the morning, if he will redeem you, good. Let him do it. But if he is not willing to redeem you, then as the Lord lives, I will redeem you. Lie down until the morning. So she lay at his feet until the morning, but arose before one could recognize another. And he said, let it not be known that the woman came to the threshing floor. And he said, bring the garment you're wearing and hold it out. And so she held it, and he measured out 6 measures of barley and put it on her. Then she went into the city. And when she came to her mother-in-law, she said, how did you fare, my daughter? Then she told her all that the man had done for her, saying, these 6 measures of barley he gave to me, for he said to me, you must not go back empty-handed to your mother-in-law. She replied, wait, my daughter, until you learn how the matter turns out, for the man will not rest, but will settle the matter today. See what good storytelling it is? Even as the chapter ends, it's not settled. So we've got to keep reading. You got to flip ahead, because what happens next? I'll tell you this is the most challenging chapter in Ruth. There is some uncertainty and innuendo in the writing of this chapter, and we have to work through it. And yet it's also storytelling at its finest. There are 3 little scenes in this chapter, verses 1 through 5. Ruth and Naomi, they're in the late afternoon, and Naomi hatches a plan. Verses 6 through 13, Ruth and Boaz in the middle of the night at the threshing floor. And verses 14 through 18, the sun comes up, and there's this renewed great hope that God is up to something. To this point of this story, we have quite a contrast between Ruth and Naomi. Naomi has been paralyzed by fear. We talked about it at length, but that is slowly starting to change as chapter 3 begins. Naomi is beginning to see the hand of God. It has always been there, but now she's beginning to see it at work, and it appears to have an effect on Naomi. Yet as chapter 2 ends, it appears as if the story's at a standstill. Ruth and Boaz meet, but they go their separate ways. And as chapter 3 begins, nothing else has happened. The story hasn't progressed. What's going to go on? Ruth is living with Naomi, and she's working in the fields. Well, how will this relationship with Boaz progress? And this is where we see signs of life and hope in Naomi. Perhaps it springs finally from a heart that is repentant, from eyes that are open to the work of God in her life. Naomi isn't completely there yet, and we'll see signs of that in this chapter, but God is working. Look at verse 1. My daughter, should I not seek rest for you that it may be well with you? Until now, all of the initiative, all of the effort in this relationship has been on Ruth's part. No longer, though, content to watch Ruth languish, Naomi finally devises a plan. She cares about her daughter-in-law. Ruth needs rest. She needs protection. She needs a husband. The ancient world was rough and cruel. She needs that rest and protection. And last week we were introduced to this theme of the kinsman redeemer. What does it mean to be a kinsman redeemer? What does that mean? Why such a fixation on a husband for Ruth? Like, girl, you need a man's. Like, you need a man's to make you complete. Why is that? From our Western modern perspective, it seems like an unhealthy obsession. Naomi's husband Elimelech had a portion of the promised land. It's family land, but he's dead. And his sons are dead, which means her sons are dead. It means there's no income. It means there's no protection. It means that land that is part of the promised land is at risk of being sold, at risk of being stolen or overtaken by a stronger hand. There is real peril for the outcome of their family and their family name. That land will be lost from their name forever. The kinsman redeemer is an Old Testament provision by God in ancient Israel, where a close relative of the family who's responsible has the ability to buy back the family property, redeem the family from slavery, even avenge the murder of a family member. Leviticus chapter 25 talks about this a little bit, verse 25 and 47. But in our text, the kinsman redeemer would have the opportunity to marry the widow of a dead relative. Now, not everyone takes that opportunity. Not everyone wants that opportunity, because you marry that widow, you give her a son by the grace of God, and that son would keep the name of that widow's dead husband. And that son would keep that land in the family's name, in the dead husband's name. So there's a sacrifice on the redeemer's part that this would all take place. This is God's way in the Old Testament of seeing that property isn't stripped from the family because of heartache and loss. It's God's way of protecting the young widow and the widow. Ruth needs someone to marry her so the land stays, so that she has a hope with a son. There's no social net, safety net. You need sons to provide and care for you in your old age. Naomi finally sees this. She's not worried about herself as much anymore. She begins to be concerned for her daughter-in-law. You need a husband. We need a son, a grandson, so the land remains ours and is not lost. So Naomi says, is not Boaz our relative with whose young women you've been working? And so in other words, like, hey, Ruth, it's been long enough. What about Boaz? Have you ever thought about Boaz? What about Boaz? Naomi is only saying what they are both thinking. Ruth is well aware of Boaz, his kindness, his generosity, those very first words that he said to her on that day when they met. It would have been unforgettable for Ruth. And we'll see evidence of this later. There are also some indicators that Boaz is also thinking about Ruth. He may be shy. He may be awkward around Ruth. He may not know how to break the ice. He may not know the next steps. Most likely, though, what's happening is he is being sensitive to Ruth as she continues to mourn as a widow of her husband who passed. In any case, to this point, we're all the way in chapter 3, and no action has been taken. They have not moved any closer together. We're no closer to resolution in this great story. Several weeks have passed since the end of chapter 2. There's no visible progress. And now Naomi is a woman of action. Now she is the one who instigates. She has some hope. She believes that God is God of the ordinary, that nothing just happens. And maybe, just maybe, there's a way forward. It is obvious that Naomi cares deeply for Ruth. It is such a change for her from chapter 1. Remember chapter 1? Ruth makes that beautiful commitment. Where you go, I will go. And where you die, I will die. And your people will be my people. And your God, my God. And then as Naomi shows up into the town, everybody's like, Naomi, she's like, I've got nothing. I've got nothing. She completely overlooks Ruth, who's committed her life to her. Naomi's changing, though. A different Naomi is beginning to show here, right? This isn't a plan with an ulterior motive for Naomi. She is no longer just primarily occupied with self. She begins to think of Ruth, and her plan begins in verse 2. And I'll say this about what we've read and what we'll talk through right now. A lot of ink has been spilled over what exactly she wants Ruth to do. Is Naomi being a little devious here? Like, ultimately, her motives are good, but like, hey, whatever you got to do to secure the bag with Boaz, do what you got to do. Do you know what I'm saying? Like a lot of ink has been spilled over what this means. It's a somewhat confusing portion of Scripture. Uncover his feet. Lay at his feet. Wait and see what happens. Boaz is at the threshing floor at night, we're told. Okay, so barley harvest is in May and June. It's typically harvested on stony ground. Boaz has not left this work, this profit, to his servants. He does it himself. And Naomi says to Ruth, look, I want you to wash and anoint yourself. I don't know how to tell you this, Ruth, but you're in the field every day. You're a little ripe. Okay, like you're a little ripe, like let's wash up a little bit. Okay, bathing was not an everyday practice in ancient Israel. The climate combined with no modern soaps, no modern deodorant makes it a little tough. She says, look, anoint yourself. Go to Sephora, get some body spritz, okay, spray it on yourself just a little bit. Get a lip liner, girl, okay, like, and let's go out and let's see. Get dressed. She says, what is she talking about there? Probably an outer cloak that could also be a covering. Could also be her way of saying, look, you've mourned long enough for my son and your husband. It's time to move forward. But anyways, whatever she says, like, Ruth, it's time for a glow up. You need to go get yourself a man's and secure this bag, okay? So do not make yourself known to this man, she says, until he has finished eating and drinking. I will say that there doesn't appear to be a lot of confidence in old Ruth from Naomi's standpoint. She's like, wait till it's dark until he's full and he's had a few drinks. Like, wait till then and then reveal yourself to him. As one commentator points out, this may be Naomi formally telling Ruth, end your mourning, all right, which would also explain why Boaz has been hesitant up to this point. Because she's been in mourning, they're allowing for that, they're honoring that. Verse 4, this is what Naomi says, but when he lies down, observe the place where he lies, go and uncover his feet and lie down, and he will tell you what to do. If Naomi seems to be a little vague here to us in her instructions, it's because she is intentionally being vague. Like I said, people are divided on her intentions here. Words like uncover and lie down have double meanings in English, but they also have double meanings in the original language in Hebrew. He will tell you what to do. I am not convinced that Naomi has pure intentions here. Her ultimate goal is good. She wants Ruth to get a husband, to have a son, to be cared for her land to be preserved, all of those things. But she is willing to make this relationship happen at whatever the cost, even if it started through sexual immorality. And so after all, we're in this time, the days of the judges, where every man did that which was right in his own eyes. Naomi is, in her mind, the ends justify the means. That's where we're at with her. I think she is purposely being vague. Absolutely. Whatever happens, see what goes on. Whatever it takes, secure the bag. Lay down at the feet of a happy, possibly inebriated man, certainly tired, certainly vulnerable, maybe his inhibitions are down, and he'll tell you what to do and do what he says. Ruth responds like faithful Ruth, all that you say I will do. She is such a faithful woman, making good on her commitment to her mother-in-law. I'll obey, I'll do what you say. And when you read this, you think this isn't going to end well. This is the time in the movie when you look away out of embarrassment. This is going to be a very awkward scene. This is the time when you close the book and you throw it across the room because now it's just getting stupid. And why would the author do what they did there? It's also the time where you lose all respect for Ruth and Boaz. Look at verse 7. When Boaz had eaten and drunk, and his heart was merry, yes, he was drinking wine, but he does not appear to be drunk where he's lost control. He's rejoicing in the harvest. The famine is past. There is bounty again in the promised land. Right? Blessing is restored. God's blessing was raining down once again all over Bethlehem. And so some time passes, and at midnight, his feet are unusually cold. They're exposed to the night air, so he turns over. I mean, the writing here is really, really cool. Like, he turns over to see, what's the deal? Why are my feet cold? And behold, a woman is at his feet. Isn't that what he expected? There's a lady laying at his feet, and there's no ambient light. He doesn't have a flashlight. He doesn't have his phone, and he can pull it up and look. There's a woman laying at his feet. Who are you? It's the last thing he expects. Thieves? Sure. A lion? Sure. A monster that, because your foot's uncovered from the sheet, that can pull you off the bed? Absolutely. Can they pull you off the bed if your feet are under the sheet? No. But if your one foot's out, can a monster get you? Absolutely. Everyone knows this is true. All of those things are possible, but the last thing he expects is a woman is laying at his feet. Who are you? What in the world is going on here? And man, I wish I would have washed my feet a little earlier, right? It's dark. He can't make out who it is, but he knows it's a woman. Why? Because she's anointed herself. He can tell from the perfume. I am Ruth, your servant. Spread your wings over your servant, for you are a redeemer. In this one area, Ruth goes above and beyond what Naomi asks. She is not sending mixed signals in any way to Boaz. She loves God too much. She has too much respect for Boaz. So she immediately turns this spiritual. And she also uses Boaz's exact first words that were to Ruth in chapter 2. She asks him to marry her. She has never forgotten the first words that they spoke together, much like many couples here who've been married can tell you the first words, the first conversation they had, and the great things that were said that you've always kept in your heart. Ruth has kept that first conversation in her heart, and her first words to Boaz are a repetition of the words that he said to her. Spread your wings over me. Marry me. There is kindness in his eyes. She knew this from that first moment. This isn't just a marriage of convenience. She's just not doing this just because, like some type of being forced into it. Here's what one writer says. The gesture of a man covering a woman with his garment was a symbolic act which signified the establishment of a new relationship and the symbolic declaration of the husband to provide for the sustenance of the future wife. Remarkably, Boaz interpreted this immediately not as a demand for sex, but as a proposition for marriage. In today's language, what this scene looks like is Boaz turning over, seeing a woman at his feet saying, who are you? And it's Ruth, marry me. I want you, would you marry me? As odd as it is even today, I cannot express to you how foreign that was in Old Testament Israel. Not to mention because Ruth is also a foreigner and he's an Israeli. She's a servant. He is a boss. They are not equal in their standing in any single way. And yet her words to him are marry me. Those few seconds while Boaz wipes the sleep from his eye, while he wakes up, must have felt like an eternity to Ruth. What's he going to say? Is he going to chase her out? Is he going to just laugh and be like, what? No, what are you talking about? But immediately, Boaz has compassion on Ruth. My daughter, do not fear. Rather than outrage, he understands the courage that this took. He understands the character of this woman, that she would do what she's going to do and make clearly her intentions, not for anything immoral, but that they would have a God-honoring relationship. And he understands how much Ruth must have feared his response. I will do all that you ask, is what Boaz says. You'll do what? Really? But then there's one slight bump in the road, because this is great storytelling and it's a true story. I can be that kinsman redeemer, but there is a problem. There is a kinsman redeemer closer in the line who has the first right to redeem you. The first right. So there is a problem here. There is still tension, but we'll deal with it in the morning. And for the moment, though, there's great joy for both Boaz and Ruth. She lay at his feet until morning. The Bible is clear here. As much as Naomi's intentions were a little more like whatever happens, nothing sexual occurs here. They try to suppress the excitement. They sleep. Early in the morning, they rise to avoid a poor testimony. Before she leaves Boaz, whose heart is full, he sends her away with what is about 70 to 80 pounds of barley. He puts 70 to 80 pounds of barley on her shoulders, and she carries that all the way back to town. Naomi hasn't been able to sleep either. How did you fare, my daughter-in-law? What happened? Tell me what's going on. This is how I fared. 80 pounds of barley on the floor. Not just food, currency, life, a year's worth of life or more. What a morning this must have been in that little house. Things aren't certain yet, but even Naomi's eyes are open to the work of God. So I want to close here with just a couple thoughts, and we'll finish in a word of prayer. Here's the first thing that we see from a perspective on love. Love is rooted in commitment. Love is rooted not in passion or a consuming fire. Love is rooted in commitment. This is not a script that Hollywood writers would write or produce. Ruth and Boaz are not characters that would be created. Boaz is significantly older than Ruth. We see this is why he refers to her over and over again as my daughter. Look, if we get married, my daughter, you're going to have to learn how to put icy hot patches on my back. Like, you're going to have to learn that. That's one of the things. And from time to time, you're going to have to learn how to lance a bunion. You're going to have to do these things. And I'll tell you this right now, in this house, we watch Wheel of Fortune every night, okay? We are members of the Wheel Watcher Club. This is what's going on, Ruth, if you marry me. And Ruth isn't your 80-pound Hollywood starlet. She's strong, able-bodied. She's lived a hard life in the fields. Did you catch that? He put 80 pounds of barley on her shoulders and she carried it all the way to town. She is a tough, rugged woman. She is no wallflower. She is praised over and over again in this book for her character, that she loves the Lord, but her beauty is never mentioned. She's just ordinary, like you and me. She's not Queen Esther or Bathsheba. She's ordinary like you and me. If this was on a Christian Mingle website, his profile would read, must love Fiber One, naps, and helping remove ear hair. Okay, that's what it would say. And hers would read, must love arm wrestling, CrossFit, and buy me a Subaru. That's what it would read. This is what's happening if this was on modern day Christian Mingle, okay? It's Christian Mingle, okay? But their marriage is going to work. Why is it going to work? Because love is rooted in commitment. Commitment to God, commitment to each other. It's going to be a beautiful thing, a relationship that anyone would want, a relationship that anyone would covet, dying years later holding hands in the nursing home. Why? Not because he's the one and she's consumed with him, or vice versa, or because she chose him out of a group of bachelors behind a wall on a reality show. It's because above pursuing each other, they pursue God first. And because they love God and committed to God, then they are drawn to each other's commitment to Christ. That's why. All the townsmen know, Ruth, that you're a hottie. Is that what he says? No. What is it first and foremost? All the townsmen know that you're a worthy woman, that you're a woman of character, that though you come from the people of Moab, you are now a Christ follower, a believer. You believe you're a woman of character. You're worthy. Her character is known in the city gates. Proverbs 31 talks about that type of desirable woman, that they would be desirable because their character is known. Her character is known in the city gates. The driver for Boaz's attraction appears to be Ruth's faith. And the driver for Ruth's attraction appears to be Boaz's faith. Because they're committed to God, they're going to be committed to each other. You see, true love, lasting love, is rooted in commitment. Don't forget that. Someone that's committed to Christ will certainly be committed to their wedding vows. Someone that loves God above all else will certainly then order their love for you in such a way that you're not neglected and you're cared for. This is what Tim Keller says. You don't fall into love. You commit to it. Love is saying, I will be there no matter what. So we were talking about this in our teen class. They were asking me questions in Sunday school. One of those is like, how do you know if someone's the one? Well, ultimately, what makes someone the one is saying, I do. And when you say I do, they're the one. And then living up to that commitment. Love is rooted in commitment. And here on these pages, we see the commitment of Ruth and Boaz, commitment to God and commitment to each other. And the last thing this morning, and the bigger picture is this, is that Boaz was Ruth's redeemer, and there is a redeemer for you and me. You can see it here, and once you see it, you can't unsee it. And God's intention in including this in Scripture and the overall storyline of providing the Messiah, the coming Messiah. Boaz is a Christ figure in Ruth. He is Naomi and Ruth's earthly hope of redemption. They're in extreme poverty. They have no hope of changing their circumstances. They have too much baggage to be appealing to anyone. Who would take an interest in them? Who would redeem them? And how sweet and reassuring his words must have been on that threshing floor. Fear not, my daughter, I will redeem you. Words that Ruth must have played over and over again in her mind and stored in her heart, and Naomi too. He doesn't have to redeem her. He's not bound by Mosaic law to redeem her in this instance because she's a Moabite, asking this of an Israelite. She's a servant asking this of her master. Yet Boaz confidently and with great comfort responds, I will redeem you. Do you see how Boaz is the Christ figure in Ruth? Do you see how this is meant to retell over and over again for the people of God the story of salvation? How there's a bigger story in Ruth than just the story. As sinners, we have nothing to offer to God. We are faced with the earthly and eternal consequences of our own choices, our own fault. We're without excuse. Too much baggage to be appealing, but then comes Jesus. Who would redeem me? And maybe you're here today and you wonder that yourself. Who would ever love and redeem me? And I am telling you that there is a Redeemer, and his name is Jesus Christ. That on the cross he said, come to me, all of you, with all of your baggage, with all of your exhaustion, with all of your sin. You come to me and I'll pay for it and I'll give you rest. There is a Redeemer, and that Redeemer is Jesus Christ. Yes, you are an orphan, a spiritual orphan, a sinner, a rebel. Yes, you have nothing spiritual to offer to God in return, but take heart because he says to you today, I will redeem you. There is a Redeemer, and his name is Jesus. We sang that song today, and I love it. I love it. I love the words. I was a wretch, and I remember who I was. And I was lost, and I was blind, and I was running out of time. And sin separated. And the breach was far too wide. But from the far side of the chasm, you held me in your sight. And God, you made a way across the great divide, left behind heaven's throne to build it here inside. And there at the cross, you paid the debt I owe. You redeemed. You broke my chains. You freed my soul. And for the first time, I had hope. Boaz reminds us that there is a Redeemer, and his name is Jesus. Let's go to the Lord in prayer today.